1395, Adelaide's 5AA. This is Richard Pascoe.
Yes, at 2 minutes past 1 here on 5AA. Remember, give me a call, 8223 0000. Talk about anything you want to. Steve Davis, good afternoon. How are you feeling?
Very well, thank you, Richard Pascoe. I'd say 99.5%.
And because you suffered from the dreaded COVID, didn't you, for a couple of weeks?
Yep. It's the first week for me that was a real head-on, and then it just takes a good week or so to gradually leave the system. Plus, early nights, being responsible, gets over the line. So, yeah. And commiserations for anyone who's enduring it, and there's lots of us at the moment.
There is lots of people enduring it at the moment, and that would have been unusual for you, late nights and taking it easy, wouldn't it, Steve?
Oh, that's right. I go to bed with the sun and I get up with the sun.
There we go. Steve, what have you got to talk to me about today?
Well, it's another small business owner that I've met in my travels with a fascinating story. His name is Michael Mills, and he is
It's a good name.
It's good, isn't it? It's a strong name.
Strong name.
He's a singer-songwriter and actor who does a lot of work for children's entertainment, but very few people would know him as Michael Mills because his character that's larger than life is Professor Flint, the singing paleontologist.
Right.
Now, anyone who...
Hold on 1 second. He's not like the last people that we were talking to on Travis's segment. I'll just put that out there right now.
Yes, it's always good to clarify those things. So, look, I actually met Professor Flint before I met him as a small business person when I took my young girls to Hallett Cove Conservation Park. Believe me, if you've not been to that park, go there. It is a glimpse back millions of years where the glaciers had it's just fascinating stuff. Anyway, I met this rather bizarre professor with a white lab coat, that Scottish tam o' shanter hat, the glasses on the nose with a broad Scottish accent, and he took us around. He sang songs at different parts, and that's Professor Flint, who's got lots of albums with dinosaur songs on it. And as it happens, a new one is out tomorrow called These Curious Things. But his story is the thing that I think there's lessons in it for all of us. So if we go back in time, young 5-year-old Michael sitting in the TV watching a movie called The Jungle Book. This would have been the original Jungle Book, which I've never seen. Have you seen it, Richard? Yes, I have. I'm just going to try and find out when that one came out. But I think it was a bit of a shocker. Yes, well,
compared to all the new ones that have come out. So yes,
yeah, right. Well, there were two songs. The thing that hit him, first of all, is you could have a story and have songs connected. And there were two songs. Some people might know these, Bare Necessities, and there's a song King Louis sings called I Want to Be Like You.
Hold that thought for a minute. I don't think that was in the 1942 edition of the Jungle Book.
Maybe. Well, there was a TV cartoon version too.
Oh, yeah, there was too, yes. But 1940...
Yeah, I reckon that...
Do you remember the Sabu played Mowgli? So
wow.
There we go.
Look at this. You just drip with modern information, pop culture.
Yeah, thanks, Google. So, yes.
Now, look, so that a seed was planted. Now, in his family, a bit of music. His mum played piano, and whenever Moonlight Sonata is played, it just brings back memories of her for him. His dad played banjo, and young Michael hated the banjo until later in life he rediscovered it doing an album. And he said one of the beautiful things in his life was in the last few years before his dad passed, he went over to where his dad was living and played the Dinosaurs Down Under album, and his dad was in tears because his son was using banjo on it, and it sort of closed that loop. But so that sort of set the seed that you could actually have song and music together. He started doing drum lessons at age 13. His sister had a guitar she didn't want, so he bought it off her for $5 and started singing his poems. And the last thing from his youth, before we get into the important stuff, is that at age 17 he wrote a song called Whispers in the Night. which has just been recorded actually by his collaborator, Gemma Dandie, but he wrote it about living in the fear of nuclear war. And those of us who are around in that period of time, 70s and early 80s, it was horrible. And now, of course, we thought that was all behind us, and thanks to Mr. Putin, it's back on the horizon again. So there's that background of Michael Mills, but here's the thing. Like any other parents who've got a kid that's showing artistic interest, they say, you know what, son? I think you should do something to keep your options open. And so he did a Bachelor of Business and got a job in the HR department at Housing Trust. And as a little side note, in the office next door to him, there was a department run by Mr. Peter Malinauskas, whose son currently is the Premier of South Australia.
Oh.
Yes. So he's in this job, and he's a square peg in a round hole, not working out for him. And so he'd been doing some amateur theatre, and people said, you know those kids' songs you play, you should do something with them. So he went into a community radio station in town, 3D, and he said, hey, could I do a kids' show? And the manager said, yes.
It looks good.
And so he walked out of there, and this, I imagine there's a little bit of Richard Pascoe in this. He's going, right, I've got this. What the hell do I do now? and this is the thing. And this is a pattern through all his career. He did a show called Rainbow Soup. It ran about a year, had sing-along songs, action songs, a theme, a story. And what he did, he got a guest on to cover the theme. So he'd called the zoo to the education department. And back then, we're talking 15, 20 years ago, all the institutions connected with each other, and they say, oh, you want to talk to the botanic people, and you want to talk here. And he'd do all of this, and then after the show finished, here's the magic of doing something that's pushing you outside your comfort zone. Because the zoo contacted him and said, you know what you used to do on radio? Could you do a live show at the zoo? And he said, yes.
That's
and then
good.
He thought, what the hell am I going to do now? And so he came up with a character called Outback Jack, who walked around the zoo and sang songs. And so what happens is, and this is the pattern, and this is what I want people to take away from his story, it's the saying yes to an opportunity and then working out how the heck you're going to make it happen, because he then became, and it is the who you know. And how do you get the who you know? It's by doing some things and chanting around. A couple of interesting stories. He became the arts coordinator at 3D Radio, and so he got to hang around the likes of Meryl Tankard and all those creative tides. And then a few years later, he just dropped in on the station again, and they said, hey, do you want to interview David Bellamy? Do you remember David Bellamy?
I do.
A British naturalist, and I'm careful to say naturalist but not naturist.
That's exactly right. We've got to be very careful about that. Say yes.
Well, how's this? This is another bit. This is the bit that set him to where he is today. He was going to do the interview, but he'd missed the opportunity that David was available. So the PR people said, head out to the mangroves. I was going there the next day, do the interview there. But, of course, advertiser, Channel 7, they hogged it, and so he ran out of time. And so the organiser said, well, come on the tour. So just him and David Bellamy were walking on this tour through the mangroves, bonded really well, and David said, look, I normally read a book twice, but there's a book I just got by Tim Flannery called Future Eaters. I've read it 5 times. You've got to read it, which he did, and it was all about the megafauna, that the big old animals that used to live in Australia, like Thylacoleo, which is the giant scissor-toothed possum.
Yep.
Like it was huge, and it would rip you to shreds. It is an actual drop bear. It is the real drop bear. Yes, folks, they existed. And so he loved the book. He started writing songs about the animals in the book, and guess what? Tim Flannery then moves to take up running the SA Museum. When the museum opens, why don't you do an act? And so he did. And here's the bit to bring this home. He had planned this show as Professor Tom Flanagan. That was the name he was going to use, but saying, you can call me Tom Flint if you like. He did a dress rehearsal, and it wasn't quite doing it. And then he went home and walked past a Scottish puppet that he had at home, and he went, that's it. Because talking about rocks and bones now becomes rocks and bones. And so he changed to Professor Flint. The rest is history. The Scottish accent, the kids loved it. He sort of bonded with them, and then he gets to hang out with paleontologists of world positioning, have lunch with them. And at one lunch in particular, one of the people around the table was a guy called Phil Curry. Now, Phil Curry was the consultant to Jurassic Park. And so when Flint launched his album...
We like Phil because we like Jurassic Park.
Yeah, well, it was a good, fun movie, especially the first one. Yeah, the others, not so much, but the first one was great. And so Phil bought copies of his album, and, you know, there it is. You've got this pattern of life that this one person has said, I'm not fitting in here. I need to do this. It's in my soul. Does it, and then just... I remember in the 80s, they used to say, fake it till you make it.
Yes.
This is like a version. It's not quite faking it, but it's just like, okay, we're doing it. Let's just make it happen. So I love this story about Michael Mills and his characters. He does other characters too, but Professor Flint is the big one that most people know about, especially most parents will know about it, because he does parties, he does tours at the museum and so on and so forth. And his network has continued supporting him ever since, even all through COVID. Little lines of help were thrown out. I know he does the Maritime Museum, he does gigs there, etc. And it's all because he chanced his arm. So I thought he'd be an interesting story to share, Michael Mills, with us today.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting story, because sometimes, Steve, you get those opportunities and suddenly it's a different turn in life to you. It really is.
And I will say I am generally good at saying yes, but there have been a couple of times when I've said no, I just chickened out, and I just got that voice saying, no, you're going to be caught out. This is outside, and I've said no, and I've regretted it every day. There are just two decisions I made long time ago that I really wished I had taken the medicine that I now live by generally, and Michael Mills has lived by, because it's what, I mean, it'd be much better to have said yes and failed than to have this nagging ghost of what could have been. You know, there's just nothing you can do about that. No, the opportunity comes, and it comes once.
That's right. So 12 years ago, somebody said, or Amanda Blair said, would you like to come on the show? It was 12 years ago, and look what's happened. Say yes. 12 years ago this year. I've been doing radio 12 years now.
See? Good, and look at what's happening now. It's just building out. Soon, it will actually be called Radio FIVEaa Pascoe.
Yeah,
that's what's going to happen.
Sam's just fallen off his chair outside, so he's rolling his eyes. Steve, thank you very much. Where can people find out about you? Thank you very much. Well, I met Michael because we talked about marketing, my marketing consultancy. I've got this mentoring program which gives people 3 hours of my time for $44 to get started, just to get the lay of the land, and it's wonderful. We do it again to help them at talkedaboutmarketing.com. Love to help others too. And just the last thing though, when all of us deal with small businesses, just remember there are stories behind those people behind the counter or the other end of the phone, and it's just fascinating to have that human depth that you don't kind of get when you deal with big corporations. Exactly right. We've got a message in from a listener. He knows a Michael Mills, who was an actor too, used to be president of the Port Power Cheer Squad. Is it the same person?
Well, it's funny. I did say to him today when I said I was going to be talking about him, that was a nail-biter last night, wasn't it? And he hung up the phone on me. So, yes, he is a Port Power man through and through. Wouldn't be surprised if that was him.
Oh.
And we'll hopefully be on talking terms again soon. But, gee, it was a beautiful moment.
If you're listening, Michael, call in, all right? I sympathise with you. All right? It'll be fine, Michael. We can commiserate together, okay?
But it was a good game, I'd tell you that much.
That was a terrible game. See you, Steve. Have a good day, mate.
See you, Richard.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.